That's gonna be sore tomorrow.
Fucking alarm. Fucking close. Fucking door.
Hey, where are you going?
Work. I need to review this shitty game.
Give me some milk on the way back.
You've had more milk than a woman ever needs.
What was that?
Nothing, dear. Alright, let's see here. First off, gonna talk about the history of the game. History? Who gives a shit about that these days? Then, of course, the gameplay. Then the best part, the verdict. I'm such a harsh judge, they won't see it coming.
Can't we all just get along?
Postal, Postal, Postal. Where do I even begin? Well, how about this? Postal is a family-friendly, politically correct, and educational experience.
This is a sticker!
That is fun for the whole family. Teaching you how to respect people, befriend animals, and is very culturally and ethnically diverse. Just in case you haven't got the memo yet, I'm bullshitting you. This game is basically like the South Park of games, dialed up to 11. Before I go into specifics, we need to take a look at an overview of the series as a whole. The Postal series is made by Running with Scissors, an Arizona-based development studio. Believe it or not, I actually know their number. Giving them a call now.
Who is this?
Hey Vince, it's Alex from Hexagon. Just thought I'd let you know I'm making an old book gold on Postal 2. You should show the team.
Look at the quality of this video!
Yeah, just to let you know though, I am going to be quite critical.
Fuck you two!
Hello? Vince? Hello? The idea of Postal was to basically make the most absurd and ludicrous game ever, inspired by movies at the time. You know, when movies were actually half decent. There have been 4 Postal games, conveniently named Postal, Postal 2, Postal 3, and Postal 4 No Regrets. Yeah, don't ask me. Let's start with the first. Postal was quite renowned for each entry in the series being a different style. Postal 1 was an isometric shooter. As you can probably tell just by looking at it though, it hasn't aged well. I mean look, I run this series where all I try to do is sell you old games, but this is too archaic even for me. But with that being said, for those that did play it back then, it went down quite well. Next we have the game this is all about, Postal 2, this time being a first-person shooter, which is universally recognised as the best Postal game in the series by far. We'll talk more about why this game was considered the greatest later. On the contrary, Postal 3, this time being a third-person shooter, is considered the worst game in the series, being poorly received by fans and critics alike. It was bad because of development complications. Running with Scissors stated that it should have never been released, so much so that the studio even disowned the game. Running with Scissors later went back and made a full-on expansion pack for Postal 2. And yes, you heard that right, not Postal 3, Postal 2, as a sort of apology to the fans, and of course to make a shit ton of cash. Many years passed, but Postal 4 was eventually announced, this time breaking the trend of having a different style per game and sticking to what they knew worked, a first-person shooter. Postal 4 is said to be the true and worthy successor to Postal 2, imitating it in many ways. Now, whether or not Postal 4 stands the test of time, which I think it will, we can only wait and see, but the bottom line is, Postal 2 was clearly something special, and holds more weight in the series than all of the other games combined. But why? How is it that a game from 2003 is still so adored? Why is it that the developers went back and made an expansion pack for a game that should have already been replaced? And why are they so obsessed with Gary Coleman? All this, and more, after the break.
Are you worried about losing your teeth? Worried that no man, woman, or man-woman will ever look at you if you did? Well, I have news for you. Being trashy is totally in right now.
Stress is one of America's biggest killers, so why worry yourself to death when you can just deal with the problem head on? There's no need to worry about losing your teeth, if you don't have any. That's why we created Postal. Drinking just one 330ml can of this absolute sewage per day increases the chance of you losing a tooth by 99.99%. Why waste thousands of dollars on toothpaste and mouthwash when you can buy a 6-pack of Postal at your local supermarket for just $2.99? This is the best way to lower your stress levels. Don't believe us? 9 out of 10 dentists agree. Don't bother trying to improve your life. Just accept you're a loser. A loser with good tasting carbonated beverages. Postal, out now.
Postal may not be FDA approved. May contain actual human sewage, human plants, and possibly moon rocks. Drink at your own discretion.
The hell is this? I came here to see a review about a first-person shooter, and then there's this guy doing, what, comedy sketches? Dude, I don't give a shit about your comedy sketches. I just want to see the actual game. You know what? Fuck this. I'm unsubscribing. Well, I'll tell you why. It's because the game is essentially one big joke. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean, it is, really, just one big joke.
Come on, hurry up. I know you got minorities to oppress.
Here's how Postal 2 works. Just like in all the other games, you play as the Postal Dude, a psychopathic redhead who seems to have no regard for human life whatsoever. Some of you may wonder how I convinced my parents at the time to let me play Postal 2. I told them it was a game about delivering mail. The game starts on Monday and ends on Friday, or at least it used to. If you buy the game these days, it will include an expansion pack which extends the game to end on Sunday. So basically, the game starts on Monday and ends on Sunday. Every day, you get given some objectives to do to move on to the next day. Now on paper, they sound quite innocent. Get your paycheck from work, sounds simple enough. Oh wait, there's a protest outside, which ends up raiding your workplace with machine guns. Oh, and you're fired.
Nothing personal, man, but you're fired.
But I just started yesterday.
Cash your paycheck at the bank. Oh wait, the bank is being robbed. Get some milk from the store. Oh wait, the store is being robbed, and now you have to kill the cashier's wives and escape through an underground sewer and try not to get eaten by some weird animal. Postal 2 is a game where you don't know what to expect, but you know one thing for certain, it's going to be crazy. There's something you have to understand about this game right off the bat. It's extremely politically incorrect, but the game doesn't discriminate in who it pisses on at all. Throughout the game, you can kill normal citizens, terrorists, the army, animal rights activists.
Get him! This one's for all the oppressed McNuggets!
I mean, you name it. Now, I said the game is a first-person shooter, so of course there's guns, pistols, shotguns, machine guns, they're all commonplace. But there's also RPGs, and even nuclear weapons. The gunplay feels good for the time, and there's a lot of little quirks you can discover. You can of course die, restoring your health with various forms of junk food you find around the map, as well as smoking drugs to temporarily give you a boost, only to lose it later. Very Postal. Melee weapons are also there like shovels, but there's also some unique weapons. You can match gasoline and matches, and use shock tasers. Most of that is not much of a surprise at all, pretty standard FPS lineup, but what is surprising is that the game also puts another weapon in your arsenal. The ability to piss on people. Fire is really punishing in this game, and for a while I couldn't figure out why. Then I realised you're meant to piss on yourself to extinguish the flames. Now that's what I call recycling. In this game, it's possible to shock someone until they beg for you to kill them, slice off all their body parts with a shovel, piss on their corpse, then kill their dog. And that's all in under 2 minutes of starting the game up for the first time. Yeah, this game doesn't hold back. It lets you do the most vulgar, violent acts you can think of. In fact, the game is so controversial, it has even been banned in many countries around the world. Germany banned it outright, same with Australia, but considering both of those countries would probably ban Oxygen if they could get away with it, that's not much of a surprise. Get this though, in New Zealand, merely owning a copy of Postal 2 will net you 10 years in jail and a fine of $50,000. What the fuck? Seriously? 10 years and $50,000? I could rob a store, slap my wife, take a giant shit in front of the president's office. I still probably wouldn't get that. I don't know why New Zealand's dumb fuck government thought that this mere game was worth more of a punishment than all of those things I just listed, but I have to agree with their Prime Minister here. Politics is definitely the worst place for them to be. You know, there's an alternative universe where I'm from New Zealand, and I'm doing this review, and all of a sudden...
Shut the fuck up!
Shit. But it wasn't just international governments that pissed on the game. So-called game critics lambasted it too. Take a look at all these negative reviews. Oh, this one right here is my favourite. From GMR Magazine, never heard of them. Including a coin-op arcade game called Fag Hunter in the game world is not only not fun, it's disgusting and hateful. Are you for real? Ironically, this same outlet gave GTA San Andreas a 95 out of 100, despite almost being as bad as Postal 2 in terms of offence. They also gave Karaoke Revolution Volume 3, whatever that is, a 92 out of 100. So let me get this straight. Assuming 100 is the maximum score, Postal 2 is a 0 out of 100, Karaoke Revolution Volume 3 is an 82 out of 100, and GTA San Andreas is a 95 out of 100. So that means that Karaoke Revolution Volume 3 is what? 82% better than Postal 2? And GTA San Andreas, that's only 13% better than Karaoke Revolution Volume fucking 3. If this isn't proof that rating games via a number is moronic, and that most so-called game critics can't tell their arm from their arsehole, I don't know what does. This game got a much higher user score, which, let's face it, is the only score that matters. I swear, games journalists are the biggest pussies on the planet. Hey, wait a minute. While it is true that if you look at Postal 2 on the surface, it does seem like mindless violence and crude nonsense, but as with all games, unless you have the perception of a Big Mac, you should know to read in between the lines. I'm just going to warn you right now, I'm going to get deep here. This could be my inner English teacher coming out, and I could be wrong here, but to me, Postal 2 is a representation of the absolute worst parts of modern day American/Western society at large. The fast food binge culture, obesity, rudeness, narcissism, etc. all represented in this over-the-top, hyper-exaggerated world. This game may be a joke with a humorous plot, if you can call it that, but it's more than that. The game is filled with those things that we try to hide under the rug, don't want to talk about or see, but are there whether we like it or not. And it's hilarious to me how when faced with a harmless virtual parody of our current times, governments and the establishment game critics alike would rather respond with outrage and ignorance, rather than see it for what it really is. It's funny in a way. As the game came out in 2003, its humour contextually doesn't align with that of today, obviously. Yet the real world now has almost reached a level of madness that makes Postal 2 look like a watered-down version of reality, when at the time it was the other way around. To say Postal 2 is just mindless nonsense, it's like saying GTA is a game series where you just run people over with cars, or World of Warcraft is just a game about killing people. It's surface-level analysis. When you first load up the game, it warns you that nothing you see in the game should be replicated in reality. Props to the Running with Scissors lawyer for including that one. But here's the thing. You don't have to hurt or kill anyone in the vanilla version of Postal 2. Not a single person. At the end of the game, you get given a list of statistics along with a rank, and if you don't hurt a fly, you get the Jesus rank. I mean, I got this rank instead in mine, but still, think about that for a minute. The game never says, hey, kill that guy, or hey, piss on that guy. The player chooses to do that on their own accord, because it makes their lives easier. You choose to be an arsehole. If you get a brutal rank at the end of the game, I think that says more about the person playing the game than the actual game itself. It's a pity that the game's expansion that expands to Saturday and Sunday basically throws this logic out the window and forces you to do all sorts of weird shit, but besides the point. A few days ago, I watched my girlfriend go on a half-an-hour long rampage on the game, killing everyone on the map, which admittedly did worry me slightly, but regardless, the game never forced her to do that, nor was it ever an objective. No, they did that purely because they are demented. Now honestly, after a few minutes, it did get kinda boring playing the game without doing the objectives, as most free roam games without them are, but the first time, it is quite fun. For a world that values freedom so much, it's quite ironic how we force games into linearity, forcing the player to do the right and just thing all the time, or face the wrath of government stooges and the army of soy-faced McGees. Now, I've spoken a lot about what I like, but what about what I dislike? Straight up, the AI are absolute morons. The police just stand there while you walk past them and you're wanted. The AI can't shoot to save their lives, literally, and well, it's pretty much exactly what you'd expect from a game that came out in 2003. But there's one thing I won't let slide, and that's the constant crashing. I don't care if the game came out in 2003, 1993, or the year 33 fucking BC. What I care about is, when I play the game, will it crash or not? And sadly, Postal 2 crashes all the damn time. It's like Windows 8's long-lost grandfather. Now, I know 2003 is borderline ancient when it comes to software support, but if you're selling a game in 2020, you should make sure it plays well on 2020 hardware. It wasn't unbearable, don't get me wrong, you can finish the game so it's not broken, but whenever I'm firing a level and it crashes and then I have to revert back to my last autosave or manual save, which could be 5 minutes back, it's a pain in the ass. Another pain in the ass is the loading screens. The map, though quite large, is split up into numerous different sections, and every time you enter one section, it pauses the game and loads up the section you're trying to enter. Now, this was common practice for games back then, but would it have really killed them to make some sort of dynamic loading instead? It just hurts the experience when you have to wait 5 to 10 seconds, even on modern hardware, every few minutes or so. There's about 500 difficulty settings, ranging from I'm retarded to dying by oxygen hitting you, which could have been simplified a tad. The default key bindings are definitely some of the worst I've ever seen in a game. There's even a dedicated key binding that opens the stats menu, so if you press that key by accident, you've wasted 5 to 10 seconds of your time every time, which I did a lot. The soundtrack is a bit meh, but this isn't the kind of game that really relies on one, as it's mostly atmospheric regardless. Overall, what I dislike about Postal 2 seems to be more about the game being a product of its time, rather than actually bad design decisions. The gameplay of the game is not groundbreaking mechanically, but let's not pretend as if it was trying to be either. Postal 2 was meant to be a fun experience, intended for you to let out your inner restrained animal and go wild in a world where it doesn't matter. Have a laugh with your friends and relax. And that, it does well. Speaking of playing with friends, there's also a multiplayer mode, but that's no longer supported and honestly isn't that great anyway. Postal 2 isn't a game you'll play for a very long time once, but a game you'll keep coming back to every few years or so. Now, considering I picked up the game on sale again for 69 British pence, an apt number I must say, which is around one small portion of fries at McDonald's, I'd say it's well worth the cash for 8+ hours of fun. In fact, I'd even go so far to say it's a bargain at full price these days. I know a lot of hardcore Postal fans will say that I've only scratched the surface of the gameplay, but Postal 2 is one of those games where the less you know about it, the better. It's a game that you should experience on your own, rather than have me telling you every event that happens beforehand.
Crap, sold out.
So there we have it, folks. Postal 2. There's only one thing left to do now. The ratings. First, let's give the game a players before profit classification. This judges the game purely on how financially respectable it is. There are 5 points that determine a game's players before profit classification. First, does the game have microtransactions? No. Pass. The second, is the game actually finished? As mentioned earlier, though there are technical difficulties, there aren't any that get in the way of you finishing the game. So yes, pass. The third, does the game have a physical copy? And believe it or not, it does. But man, you'll be hard pressed trying to get one these days. But hey, I can't get angry that physical copies of a niche game from 2003 aren't mass produced anymore. It had one, and if you want it, it's still out there. So pass. Fourth, does the game push a political agenda? Though the game can get quite mildly indirectly political, I imagine it pisses off both the left and right equally with its gaffes. The game wasn't made by a bunch of communist subversives or wardrobe Nazis, so pass. And fifth, do the developers respect their customers? You would think, considering how vulgar the games are, that the developers would be a bunch of arseholes, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Every time I've seen an employee from Running with Scissors communicate to their players, they've been very respectful, grateful, and overall just a great set of guys with a sense of humour. Something that in these absurd times is very rare indeed. pass. Postal 2 has passed all 5 tests with flying colours, giving the game a green Players Before Profit classification. And now, the actual game rating. Postal 2 is a tough one. It's not a mind-blowing game by any means, but I had a laugh with it, and I think out of all the games I've ever played, this is one that got way too much shit by critics, most of which have less skin than Car Moon. And I don't want to follow that trend. This isn't a game that you're going to tell your descendants about 50 years from now, but it's definitely good for what it is. Therefore, I'm giving the game a rare. Yeah, that's right, fuck you Metacritics. My 3 main positive takeaways. Number 1, the fact the game isn't scared to offend. Today we live in a world where everything is so corporate and rehearsed. It's refreshing to play something that just doesn't give a fuck if it hurts your feelings or not. But not in an edgy way, but in a fun way. Number 2, the humour. Now I'm sure hearing about butt sauce isn't everyone's taste, but I quite like it. Not like that. Number 3, the objectives. I like not knowing what to expect. You see, in most games around halfway through, you get tired of playing, as it becomes quite predictable, but this isn't the case in Postal 2 for sure. My 3 main negative takeaways, as I said earlier. Number 1, the constant crashing, number 2, the loading screens, and number 3, the dumb AI. All of which are products of its time and shouldn't put you off playing. Whatever you think of Postal 2, it has certainly earned its place in the history books, for better or worse. So there we have it folks, Postal 2. I hope you enjoyed this production. But before you go, we want to know, have you played Postal 2 in the past? If so, was it too much for you to handle, or is it right up your alley? Feel free to let us know and go in depth. Cheers! Hey, I'm home.
Did you get the milk?
Oh, fuck.
I better get out of here.